Well, since my other video about Junkyard LS engines seems to do pretty well, let's do a video restoring the Junkyard LS head that I got on the motor going into the Mustang. First things first, this cylinder head is filthy, so we're going to tear it down, get all the valves, valve springs, all that stuff off of it, and then just clean the crap out of this thing. And by clean the crap out of it, I just mean spray it with degreaser and power wash it. So first thing we're going to do, get all the valve springs out of there. So I got my nifty little valve spring compressor tool that I made, and that'll pop all those out of there real easily. If you didn't see the video on how to make this thing, it only costs about $3 to make. So super cheap, easy way to remove and install valve springs on an LS head. I'm gonna go ahead and get all those popped out real quick though, and then over here I have a bin to put all the valves in. That way when I take them out, I know this is intake 1, intake 3, intake 5, intake 7, exhaust 1, exhaust 3, exhaust 5, exhaust 7, just to keep them all in order with the cylinder that they came out of. And we're going to go ahead and pop all the valve seals and get the spring seats out of there while we're at it too. So to get the seals out of here, what I usually do is just get some vice grips, clamp them on there snug. You don't want to crank them down super tight, and then just kind of rock them back and forth and they'll pop right out. Or you can use like hose pliers that are like they're kind of like round U-shaped on the end. Those work really good. Doing them inside the engine obviously isn't too bad either, but we got it out, so I'm gonna pop those out real quick. And then the seats, just use a magnet, maybe a little pick tool if you need to. Sometimes they're kind of suction down in there from the oil. You know, they create a nice little seal on there. So yeah, I'm gonna get that popped off real quick. So we have everything stripped out of these now. And I mean, you can see how dirty these are. And we are gonna take care of all that. A lot of this gunk is kind of hard to get out just by cleaning, so when we go ahead and port it, it'll clean up most of it. You know, same story over on this side. Obviously the exhaust ports are gonna be a little bit dirtier. And then while these are apart and you have them off the car, it's always good to check for any kind of cracks that you might be able to find in the cylinder head. So go through it thoroughly, check for cracks, just because you don't know, you know, what the condition of this head was or how many miles were put on it, who drove it, how, you know, how it was used or anything like that. So just always go through and check for any kinds of cracks or anything like that. Check the valve seat contact surfaces, make sure they look like they have pretty even contact on them. And then if everything looks good, move on to the next step of cleaning them up. And then obviously after you clean them, inspect them again just to make sure that there were no cracks that you might have missed the first time. But this head looks good, so we're gonna go set it outside, degrease the shit out of it, and hit it with the power washer. Alright, now that the heads are all rinsed off and washed out, they're significantly cleaner than they were before. Still a little bit dirty on this side, but nothing we can't clean up with a brush and a little bit of degreaser. I'm just going to go ahead, hit them with an air hose real quick, kind of dry them off a little bit, and then put some oil down in the valve guides so that they don't start to rust. Since these are still a little bit wet, we're gonna let them drip dry for a bit, but while those are drying, we're gonna go ahead and get the valves cleaned up. Now these valves do have quite a bit of carbon deposit buildup on them. Luckily they're pretty simple, pretty easy to clean up, not that big of a deal. The way I do it is I just put the valve stem in the end of a drill and hit it with a Scotch-Brite on the other end. So just hold a Scotch-Brite pad on the end of the valve and just kind of turn it and let it clean itself. It works really well. The valves are hard enough that they're not going to get super scratched up or anything like that. Plus we're going to lap the valves when we're done and reset all the seating on them so that they'll seal really nice. So we're just going to stick our valve in here. We're not going to grip down on it too tight, just a little snug on there. Nothing too crazy. That we don't have to worry about scratching it. And it doesn't. I've done this several times and it doesn't hurt the stem at all. Just don't crank it down on there, or if you're using a twist style one, yeah, just don't go crazy with it. And then all you do is just like that. See how clean that is now? Same thing on the back. For comparison, super easy to do, and it gets them nice and clean. And now to do the rest of them. It's not working. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it worked that time. Now they're all clean. Okay, so now that our heads are cleaned up, our valves are cleaned up, next step is we are going to start porting the heads. Now, when I'm doing these, I'm not going to go ahead and just open these up as big as they can go or anything like that. And to be honest, on the intake port side, I'm not really going to open this up at all. I'm just going to go in here and clean all this up. So we're just going to try and knock down all the casting ridgings and the kind of casting lines you see in here. We're just going to knock all that stuff down, clean it up a little bit, try to make it a little bit smoother. But we are not going to be like reaming it out and making it as big as we can get it. It actually has a really good design to it already, so we're just going to go in, clean it up on the intake port. The exhaust port, on the other hand, we are going to change a little bit. We're going to raise the roof section on this and bring it up probably about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, about an 1/8 of an inch. We're going to bring this top part up. Bottom's going to stay the same. And then we're going to go ahead and knock down the casting marks, smooth it out, polish it. Now, porting heads takes a really, really long time to do by hand. And if you don't have the tools to do it and you want to do it yourself, honestly, it's probably cheaper just to send them out and get CNC ported than it is to buy the tools and spend the time doing it yourself. Because a CNC job is going to be a lot better than a hand port job, and the tools to do it are not cheap. I mean, you can get most of the stuff at like Harbor Freight, but buy all the grinders and stuff at Harbor Freight, you get all the bits and stuff that you need. You know, you're going to spend probably $200 on, you know, bits and equipment just to port the heads. CNC porting, you can usually get it done for like $400. Kind of the better way to go in my opinion. But I'm all about doing shit myself, so we're hand porting it. Now I'm not going to go ahead and record the whole thing of me doing this, but I'm just going to get started on it, and I'll give you guys little updates as I go along, showing you what I'm doing, because once I start grinding, it's going to be loud, compressor's going to be running, and it won't be nice. So I'll just give you guys updates as I go along. Okay, so the first thing I do when I start porting is I'll usually hit the bottoms first, all the way across. Let me see if I can get this light set up in a spot you can see it a little bit better. So I'll hit the bottoms first. I'll usually focus a little bit heavier on this side because I'm right-handed. And then when I flip the head upside down, this is now going to be on the right side, so I can focus a little bit heavier on that. But what I do is I go through, kind of do all of them at the same time. That way I can make sure they're kind of similar and even. And then when I flip it over, same thing, except I'm going to be able to hit this side a little bit harder, and we're going to be able to open up this. Now, what I'm using for the first step in cutting is basically just, you know, a metal bit, cutting bit in there. Just go in and kind of hog it out, smooth it out with it, and then after that's all done, then we put the sanders on it. So we have the little sanding drum discs here, and then after that we polish it. But that's step one. I'm gonna flip the head over and do the other side now. So here's one of them, poured it out right there. You can definitely tell the difference of how much I opened that up. That's the only spot we're actually gonna open up on it. Then we went ahead and we were able to get the inside of here a little bit better. But now we have the rest of that in there to do. And getting to all of that with the big grinder can be a real pain in the ass, because you don't want to hit the valve seat. You don't want to grind on that at all. So what I use to get into there is a small little pencil grinder. So basically one of these, that's a buffing wheel on it right now, but I do have some small little grinding bits that get in there real nice. It takes a little bit longer because they're smaller, but we go in there, clean that surface all up with the small grinders, and then once that's done, then we got to hit that with the sanding wheel as well. But I'm going to get back to doing this. I got 3 more ports to go on this side before I start grinding through the valve opening. So I'm going to do that real quick, and you guys will see the finished product now. Bam, done. All right, on to the next part. Getting in through the valves, porting the rest of it out. So I'm gonna change a bit out on this, get in there, start hogging it out, and yeah. Okay, so now we went in there, sanded all those down in the inside. So they're, okay, that's really bright now. It's shiny. We hit it with 60, then 80, and then 120 to kind of get it nice and smooth. And now we are gonna go into the box of polishing bits, put those on the pencil grinder, and go through and polish them all up. After that, the exhaust ports will be done. So it may be a little difficult to see, but this is one that has been ported and has yet to be polished. And this one has now been polished, so it's a lot smoother. Definitely a noticeable difference for sure. So yeah, now I'm gonna go ahead, do the rest of them, and then I think I'm just gonna go ahead, do the intake side too. Basically on the intake side, we're just gonna clean it all up. We're not opening it up anything like that, so I'm gonna go ahead, finish that up, catch back up with you guys when we're done, because we still got a lot left to do on this head. All right, it is hours later. The porting is done. So they're definitely significantly cleaner, that's for sure. I also kind of cleaned up this surface here, and then all that's all done up too. There were some spots I couldn't really get to, but it's not that big of a deal. I'm not worried about it. Everything that I needed to get done on it is done though, so I'm going to go clean these up, and then I have to lap the valves and then assemble it. Okay, so the head is now rinsed off and cleaned out. It's just got to dry out. I'm actually going to put some oil in the valve guides though, so they don't rust out. I already blew them all out, so there shouldn't be any water or moisture in there, but always a good idea to put a little bit of oil in there. All right, now these should be good to sit. I'm gonna let them dry out, But for now, that's going to be it for this one. I've got a bunch of stuff to do today, so I'm not going to be able to get around to lapping the valves or installing the springs. We'll get to that in part 2, but these Junkyard heads are coming along great. They look fantastic. Spoiler, I actually have a finished one over here already. So that one is done already, but I'll show you guys the rest of this one when I can get around to finishing it. But yeah, that's going to be it for this one. So like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, follow the builds along, and I will catch you guys later.